Hey, horror lovers. One killer walks with no footsteps, never seen on video, only heard before death. The other returns wearing red silk and revenge, standing outside your window when the clock strikes 3:13. Like and subscribe if these nightmares give you chills. And tell me in the comments which story haunted you most. Let the horror begin. They said there was no such thing as a 13th floor in our building. Just a skipped number in the elevator. From 12 straight to 14, like the floor didn't exist. But it did. And I know because I saw her. I was working night security for a corporate high-rise in Manhattan, one of those sleek, mirrored buildings no one notices during the day, but feels off once the sun goes down. It was an easy job. Cameras, coffee, and silence, until the tapes started getting weird. The first was flagged automatically. Motion sensors in elevator B triggered at 3:17 a.m. That elevator should have been locked after midnight. I played it back. A man in a hoodie stepped in on the lobby level. He looked calm, just checking his phone. The doors closed. Nothing unusual, until the numbers started ticking up. 1, 2, 3. But when it got to 12, the feed jumped. There was no 13, but the timer froze for 10 seconds. No footage, just a black frame. When it resumed on floor 14, the man was gone. The doors opened to an empty elevator. No exit, no return, just gone. I figured it was a glitch. The system was old, and building management was cheap. But 2 nights later, it happened again. Different person, same time. And then I noticed something worse. Each missing person. I'd seen them enter. Some were employees, others late-night delivery workers. But none of them ever signed out. None of them walked past my desk. They entered the building and vanished. I reported it, sent in clips. Management said it was a technical bug, told me not to worry. HR handled the disappearances. They had answers before I even finished asking questions. But I couldn't let it go. So I stayed late one night, really late, and waited by elevator B with the cameras rolling and my radio on silent. I brought extra batteries and a backup hard drive. If something happened, I wanted proof. It was 3:12 a.m. when I heard it. The elevator chimed. No button press, no call. It just opened. Empty. I stepped back, holding my breath. Then, I heard the softest whisper, not from the speaker, but from the walls. I swear to God, it said, "Next one." I let the doors close. I didn't move, but the screen on my monitor started flickering, even though I had unplugged it from the network. A line of text appeared, typed across the static. "Floor 13 exists." That's when I remembered an urban legend I'd heard years ago, back in college. Something about a woman in red who only showed up in elevators. She never appeared on camera, never spoke, but people who saw her face were never seen again. They said the elevator always stopped at a floor that wasn't supposed to be there. Some called it Phantom 13. I thought it was nonsense, until I started reading the security logs from before I was hired. Over the past 6 years, this same elevator had over 24 flagged anomalies, mostly missing persons, strange freezes in footage, corrupted video data. Always between 3 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. And in every case, the elevator paused for 10 seconds between floor 12 and 14. I needed answers. So the next night, I wore a body cam and rode the elevator myself. Nothing happened until I hit 3:13 a.m. I pressed the lobby button, but it took me up instead, floor after floor, rising slowly. The display blinked when it passed 12. And then, the elevator stopped. The doors opened, and there it was. Floor 13. It was real. Dark hallway, dim red glow. Everything looked wrong. Warped proportions, flickering lights. like the building had grown a tumor no one wanted to talk about. And in the middle of that hallway, she stood, a woman in a crimson dress, not walking, not moving, just standing. Her hair was black and soaking wet, plastered to her face. Her hands were pale and limp at her sides. I couldn't see her eyes, but I could feel her looking at me. I slammed the door button. It closed. The elevator dropped like it had been cut from a rope. I hit the lobby, ran straight to my desk, pulled the footage from my camera. But the entire tape was corrupted, just a black screen. Only the audio remained, a single whisper, caught as the elevator doors slid shut. Not you, not yet. The next night, my co-worker Alex took the shift. He didn't show up the next morning. I checked the footage. At 3:17 a.m., he entered elevator B. The feed froze between floors 12 and 14. The doors opened, and he was gone. The police called it a disappearance. HR said it was handled. The elevator was under maintenance for weeks after. They moved me to a different building, gave me a bonus, and told me not to talk. I should have left it alone. But I still ride elevators at night, still watch the floor counter, still count in my head between 12 and 14. And sometimes, just sometimes, I see the number pause, just for a second, and I remember the whisper that followed me home. Not you, not yet. They say secrets rot when you bury them. And sometimes, if the ground doesn't stay cold enough, those secrets claw their way back out. I was 17 when we made the pact. Me, Kara, and Eliza. 3 girls trying to put one awful night behind us. It was a summer we weren't proud of. The kind of summer that starts off wild and ends with something so heavy you never talk about it again. We buried the dress in the woods behind the old train tracks, a silky red thing that didn't belong to any of us. It was ruined by then, torn at the shoulder and smeared with something we didn't want to call blood. It didn't feel like a dress anymore. It felt like guilt wrapped in fabric. No one had died. Not exactly. At least, that's what we kept telling ourselves. We had dared each other to sneak into the abandoned fairgrounds on the edge of town. The place had been shut down for years after a fire gutted half the buildings. Some kids swore it was haunted. Others just used it to drink and screw around. We were only supposed to explore, maybe film something creepy for Kara's YouTube. We weren't alone. She was already there when we found the back gate unlocked. A girl, maybe a few years older, standing under the scorched carousel. Her skin was pale like she hadn't seen sunlight in months, and her dress shimmered like it was stitched from blood and wine. We thought she was part of some setup, maybe a squatter trying to scare people off. But when Kara tried to talk to her, the girl didn't say anything. She just turned her head real slow and smiled. I don't know what happened after that. I remember screaming, running. I remember Eliza tripping over a loose board and Kara pulling her up. The next thing I knew, the girl was gone, and the red silk dress was lying where she had stood, covered in ash and something wet. We didn't call anyone. We didn't go back. We buried the dress that night, and we swore, to each other, to whatever had happened, that we'd never talk about it again. That was 5 years ago. I thought it was over. Until last month when Eliza called me in the middle of the night, whispering like someone else was in the room. Her voice shook as she said, "She's outside my window. She's wearing it." I told her it was a dream, a hallucination. But then she sent me a photo. It wasn't clear, but I knew what I was looking at. A woman in red standing in the yard. No face, just hair. The exact curve of the dress I remembered burying with my own hands. Eliza was found dead 2 days later. They ruled it heart failure, which made no sense. She was 23, healthy, worked out every week. But the paramedics said her face was frozen in a scream, like she died seeing something no one else could. A week later, Kara called me. She didn't sound scared. She sounded numb, said she hadn't slept in 2 days. Every night she heard knocking on her bedroom window. Soft at first, then louder. Always at 3:13 a.m. She's getting closer, Kara said. Last night she moved. What do you mean? She was standing, then she was crouched, watching. I told Kara to leave town, stay with someone. But she didn't make it past Thursday. They found her car halfway across the county, engine still running, driver's door open. But Kara wasn't in it. You know what they did find? A red silk ribbon tied around the rearview mirror, and strands of long black hair twisted into the fabric. After that, I stopped pretending it wasn't real. I went back to the woods. I don't know what I expected to find. Closure, maybe. Some hint that this thing could be explained. But the ground where we buried the dress, it was open, like someone or something had dug it up. There were footprints in the dirt, not fresh ones, bare ones. Like a woman's feet had stood there, toes pressed into the soil. No shoe tread, just indentations spaced apart in an unnatural way, like she floated. That night I didn't sleep. I kept staring at the window, and sure enough, 3:13 a.m., I heard the first knock. 3 soft taps, then silence. I couldn't bring myself to look, but I felt her. You know how it feels when someone's watching you. Multiply that by 100. My body went cold. The air felt thick. I tried to move, but it was like the room was pressing in on me. The next morning, there were red silk fibers caught in my window frame. I packed a bag and left town. I didn't even tell my parents. I just drove halfway across the state to stay with a cousin who didn't ask too many questions. I thought distance would help. But last night, the power flickered, and when I checked the hallway mirror, I saw her, standing behind me. Red silk, hair over her face, and her hands. They were stitched shut, like someone had sewn her fingers together at the knuckles. She didn't move, but her head tilted just slightly, like she recognized me. And then, she smiled. I turned around and she was gone. The mirror had frost on it, and I knew, I'm next.